My name is Dorothy Buckhalter. I am an enrichment teacher, and I am going to demonstrate seventh grade. First, we want to talk about the book, the informational book, which is Great Art. Great Art. But before we start, I want to talk to you about the elements of art. The elements of art, which is lines, shapes, forms, colors, values and textures, and space. All of these things make a great piece of art. It illustrate, when you look at the books, the illustrations, someone drew those pictures to make that book come alive and to uh, emphasize what the book is about. So lines is very important because it creates the form of that object. And I'm going to demonstrate later what I mean by that. Because these lines, because of the lines, we are artists. It's very easy. Because it is easy, everyone's an artist. Years ago, they used calligraphy in all writing. And everyone wrote like this. But the definition of calligraphy is an art way of writing. So shapes, triangles, circles, rectangles, hectagon, octagon, all of these shapes make it's a closure and enclosure of a shape. It's in lines that encloses, touch another line that make up shapes. Form. Form is like a 3D illusion, a 3D illusion, excuse me, hexagon, octagon, overlapping two squares together, but overlapping, putting them on one box, for instance. Let me demonstrate to you. So you're making a box, and I don't know if you've ever done this. So you enclose that box. This is a 3D illusion. On paper. We also want to talk about textures. I'm going to show you the textures and in art. I'm going to show you the textures in art. It's usually just a thick piece of thick paint. And then values is a form of shading. Values is a form of shading of dark to light. And using that concept, you visualize or you could see what that object is, that image is. And then on paper, if you want to get a shine in the eyes, because most of our eyes, give off a light and a shine. And as well as our face, some of the lightness in my face, like this is light, and you can see the lightness. So all of that is used, to the values depict that illusion on paper or on a canvas. Texture, like I said, it's thick paint. And then space. Space is how much space you take up on a paper. You could write a small circle, a tiny circle. I go a little tiny circle, and then a big circle. So there's space in this circle. There's no space here because you close it in and you use the form of value that you use the real dark space. And this is a form of value as well as the space. So, and then there's lines also, but it's enclosed. So you have lines, space, because it's clear here. And then you have also far away and near, because this is smaller and this is bigger. And value. So value is light, light and dark. And you have lines. And then if I wanted to, well, we could use color. We actually could use color, and that's a form of the 6 elements of art. Texture, like I said, texture. If I was to take paint, or even if I took this, let me show you right here. I did like this. I'm giving it texture because I'm scribbling, and it's like a form of texture. But texture also means like a 3D. I don't want to jump the gun, but this is texture to give you an idea. Texture is this. It's just thick art. Thick art. And like I spoke about shapes, this is round. This is a circle. This is color. I want to also, 6 elements of art is color as well. So this is purple, white, and green. Texture, lines, shapes, and space. A big flower, and then medium size, and then small. This is you could understand the concept. Far away, closer. So we're going to talk about the book. This is actually a book that's going to explain, and you'll learn vocabulary words. And I want you to write down on a piece of paper the acronym RIPE, RIPPE, CSAP. And each one of those words, each one of those letters stand for a word. So RIPPE, CSAP. So the R stands for realism. The I stands for impressionism. P stands for, and there's 2 P's. P stands for post-impressionism, and then the other P stands for primitivism. And then E is expressionism, and then CS is cubanism, serialism, AP abstract, and let's see, AP pop art. Okay, and I'm going to explain and talk about that in depth, those words in depth. It's a style of art. You could call it genre, GENRE. And each one of those styles, we can see illustrations in books and on art pieces, and it will enlighten you. Okay, so let's talk about realism. Realism, REALISM. And if you notice, there's a root word, real, and then there's ism, ISM. Each one of those words, if you noticed, has the ending ISM. Impressionism. Impression is the root word, RIRM, Pression. And it's ism on the end. And post-impressionism, Postimpressionism. Words form a root. There's a root word, and then there's a an affix, like on the end, and you can understand those words based on that concept. So let's talk about realism. Realism is like a landscape. Landscape. Landscape and realism. During the early 19th century, the Industrial Revolution. You remember how we talked about history, the Industrial Revolution, and what happened there is when the steam engine, we became mobile. You know, the United States became mobile. Um, you know, and we begin to farm, um, utilize farming, everyday landscape. Uh, in realism, they were painting and depicting that era, that time. So people's lives changed because of the machines made goods cheaply in factories. Trains sped up across the lands. Cities grew huge. Numbers of people moved away from the country. This upheaval prompted many artists to view the world differently. So you ever took a train ride to another country? Excuse me, that's coming to another state. Now, if you remember, if you haven't taken a train ride, most of you may have taken a airplane ride quicker than you would a train ride, because as time moves on, that's still available. But now we advance the technology. We use aircrafts or a car. We'll just drive and go there ourselves. But this was back in the times when they used horses. So now this machine has been designed, and people of the other cities are connecting. The mail, think of some of the ways back then that they had to distribute, items, or how did they move uh, animals or products? How did they move those things? Okay. Then we want to look at that most people at the time believed that great art should show historic events, famous people, but artists began to paint landscape they saw from the new trains. The English painters, J.M.W. Turner and John Constable, are sometimes known as the Romantic landscape artists. Turner painted effects of light and atmosphere. Constable painted showed the countryside, and especially loved. Realism started in France and shocked people because it was often shown as hard labor, and people, instead of comfortable lives of wealthy people, those fancy art pieces that we see in art galleries, that's what they're referring to. But now they paint, in the 19th century, they paint portable tubes, and realist artists as Edouard Manet and Jean-Francois Millet, Gustave Courbet. And we're going to go over these words and get you to pronounce these words accurately. It's difficult now because I'm saying it. There are painting people and places saw as a new modern world at this time. So let's tell you what realism art looks like in an art piece. Let's talk about this. Realism. Realism art. Okay, this is if you look closely, This is a ocean, and it has texture because you can see it has texture. Let me show you. It's the wave, and it's done by the painting, the thick painting, and then the illusion of the cloud popping up. And all that is the paint, the darker paint here, and it's kind of lined in that area. That's realism art, and we're going to demonstrate later about realism art. So the landscape artist began painting everyday landscape instead of focusing on famous people and important events. What can you tell me about realism art so far? It's real, real life experience. Let's talk about Impressionism. Impressionism in the 1860s, a group of young French artists, including Claude Monet and Camille Pissarro, Pierre Auguste Renoir, and Berthe Morisot, invented their own original artistic style rather than traditional careful composed painting. They painted passing moments using quick brush marks to capture the effects of light. So we talked about value and element of art. They're using all these elements to create these art pieces. Like the realist and landscape painter, the impressionists painted and some sculpted people, landscape, and events in everyday life. Many painted in the open air. They were more interested in how light changes the colors of scenes at a different times of the day and in different weather conditions than in capturing details. They work quickly using short brushstrokes and bright colors. Several of them never used black. So at first, most people did not like Impressionism. It looked messy, as if the artist lacked skill. In 1874, the Impressionism, we're going to get these words right because you have to get these words right. Impressionist, I'm thinking of Impressionism, but the word has changed at the end. It's ISTS. So it's Impressionist because it's talking about a person. Organize their own exhibition, expedition. Many viewers simply laughed while others were horrified. One critic commented that their work looked unfinished and was just an impression, an illusion of such. That's how the Impressionists got their name. However, by the late 1880s, Impressionism had become popular and the artist became famous. So as you can see, it's shadowy, it's not clear. Let me show you a piece of Impressionism. This can be several. Not clear. You can see it's a person, but it's an illusion of a person. I actually demonstrate because that may not be such a great piece. So we're going to take some paint. And we're going to just show you what that is. And you're going to get to do all of this, but I'm going to show you first. So we're going to take, this is, okay. You can see that. Then we're going to take, ooh, I gotta get that up. Make sure I have that. Then we're going to take, it's not detailed, it's just enough for you to know what it is. It's not perfect. It's just enough for you to know what it is. Just enough. Just enough. It's not really difficult, but you can see it's a person, but it's not giving detail. And that's what Impressionism is. Let's talk about Post-Impressionism. Post-Impressionism, after the Impressionists, came the Post-Impressionism, who worked from around 1885 to 1910. Like the Impressionists, they were mainly French and they were interested in light shadows and bold colors. So do you know what your primary colors are? Red, blue, and yellow. Primary colors. And out of those primary colors, you mix them with, um, you actually take the color wheel and shows how colors is related to each other. So you're going to get, as you're mixing them, you're going to get lighter colors. Like if you take blue and orange, you're going to get some of these colors, so like some of these colors here. You can see that. So if you took shades of green and shades of blue, you're going to get a blue-green. Same thing. If you, because there are shades, different shades from the primary colors, and then there's tints. So if you mix, they call them monochromatic, complementary, triadic, analog, split complementary. And we're going to learn all of this as we're doing our art project. So white, a color plus white gets a tint. A color plus black gets a shade. A color plus gray gets a tone. And all of this is built on the color wheel. And this is another color wheel right here. But anyway, Bright colors included Vincent van Gogh. Do you remember notice his painting? Van Gogh. He did this. Impressionism, post-impressionism. It's the way you see things. It's a real object, but the way you see things. This is an idea of it, also impressionism. That's a teapot. You can see what it is, but it's how you see it. Anyway, we're talking about the opposite, the color wheels opposite to one another on the color wheel next to each other to make everything look brighter. Paul Gauguin painted flat, bright colors with dark outlines, and he sometimes used symbols to suggest double meanings. Henry Toulouse-Lautrec painted people in Paris nightclubs using vivid colors and fluid flowing styles. The painters' range for ideas had huge impact on artists who followed them, many whom the colors painted marks more expressively and less realistically. And that means less realistically means you don't see the total form. You don't see the total. You can see it's an impression of something. How you see things. It may not be most defined as a portrait, but a portrait of a person, but or a portrait or still life photo. But it's an impression of a real object, like this real object. You can see that it's a teapot, but it has all these swirls all around it. It's not being held by a hand. It's up in the air. That's how you see it. So it's somewhat real, but it's impressionism, post-impressionism. Post-impressionism often, is bright colors. So, like I said, then a flowing style. So, green, purple, and orange are secondary colors made by mixing two primary colors together. Blue and orange, which are complementary colors opposite of each other on the color wheel and are placed next to each other to make everything look bright. And you could see these colors that he did. I don't know if you could see that. Let's talk about primitivism. Primitive, the root word is primitive, meaning primitive. Early art. You ever seen those hieroglyphics? And we're going to have some vocabulary words for you to spell all these words. Hieroglyphics is Egyptian writings. And that was a form of art. That was a form of writing. Let's talk about it. Let's see. Prehistoric art. They drew on rocks when they're finding antiquity. We're going to talk about these words. Antiquity means original, and it's before BC, before Christ, or before the common era. Before the common era, before civilization. Prehistory means before writing. So primitive is what we're talking about. Prehistoric art was made by people before the development of writing. Humans have lived on Earth for over 4 million years, but the earliest art that's been found was made about 35,000 years ago. Small stone statues of women with round bellies and to depict the illustration of what was going on. And no feet or hands were unearthed in a cave in Germany by a team of archaeologists. That's another word that we're going to learn. Art may have been made even before this time, but it has either rotted away or been destroyed, or we just haven't found it yet. So, where do you think we have most of the continents starts with it? Well, all of the continents starts with an A, except for one. There's Asia, Africa, Antarctica, Australia. Let's see, what other one am I missing? Um, Americas, North and South America. And I think that's all of them. And Europe. So which continent do you think is the oldest? Where they may find primitivism. This is primitivism art, which is written on rocks. Where do you think they would find those? I would say the oldest continent, right? Africa. Art has been made since prehistoric times, which is a time before people had even invented writing. So this is their way of writing. And thank goodness, because we're able to understand how they lived during that time. But it's a form of art, primitivism. They painted such things as plants, minerals, such as on charcoal, earth, and chalk. We still use chalk today. It's really earth material mixed with fat, water, and even blood they used. With no brushes, they used sticks and stones and fur and leaves and their fingers to apply paint. And some made handprints by holding their hands flat against the cave and then walls and blowing color powder over that particular area or through hollow bones. People have made art for thousands of years. Of prehistoric paintings and sculptures tell us a little about the life of the early artists. So let's talk about expressionism. I am a realism artist, and you're going to see that in a minute, and expressionism artists. You'll have this book in the library so you can review it, and we'll have some handouts for you to see what we talked about. In the early 20th, expressionism, in the early 20th century, German artists began to create paintings and sculptures that show their emotions. Now, remember, we talked about our acronym. So, with your acronym written on your paper, RIPPECSAP, realism, impressionism, post-impressionism, primitivism, which we just went over, and now expressionism, and Cubanism, surrealism, and AP, so that's abstract pop art. Okay, so now we're talking about expressionism. In the early 20th century, German artists began to create paintings, and we're going all over the continent, all over the world. We began to create paintings, sculptures that show their emotions. You are an artist, so when you go to do your art, emotions, whatever you're feeling, you express that in your art, and you are an artist. Very simple. It doesn't have to be defined. It doesn't have to be a fancy portrait, but a depiction of how you are feeling. So paintings They were influenced by late 19th century painters such as Edvard Munch and Vincent van Gogh. The artists used unusual colors and subjects that shocked many people. This new style of art became known as Expressionism. Expressionist movement began mainly in Germany, but later spread throughout Europe. In 1905, Dresden, Germany, and a group of expressionists described their art as a bridge between the past and the future, calling themselves Dubuque, the bridge. That's German, Dubuque. The artists in the group included Ernest Ludwig Goschner, Emil Nold, and Carl Schmidt Rottluff. They've used bold, unnatural colors such as blue and yellow for a person's skin and contorted shapes to express their feelings. They felt disturbed by the greed and selfishness during that time, that they saw or experienced. And their art aimed to the pass on these same disturbed feelings to viewers. So, is there anything that you are disturbed by or maybe happy about? How can you express that in an art piece? That same feeling. That's expressionism. Okay? So in 1911, artists Wansley Kandinsky and Franz Marc formed another expressionist group called Der Blue Reiter. The Blue Rider. Kandinsky said that the name came from their shared love of horses and from the color blue, which he thought was a spiritual color. Der Blue Reiter artists also use bold colors and strange shapes to express their thoughts and feelings. Okay, let me show you what an expressionism artist looks like. I think I showed it to you already. Okay, distorted. Distorted, it's blue color. And this is my own piece. And you're going to be able to express this the same way. So you remember the expressionism and the people who did this. What color did they use? Right here. Blue. Okay. See the blue. It's got some gold there. We'll pass this around so you can see it closely. So just remember that it's distorted. It's not definite. It's distorted. Just like the picture. He distorts it. He's using his subjects that are right here, that you can see them. And those are probably those aristocrats and the selfishness and the greed and people who are downtrodden, the poor. Distorted. Distorted. Those people don't look like that. It's distorted. And this is called expressionism. So remember our acronym, RIPPE. What do you think is coming next? Looking at your paper. Realism, impressionism, post-impressionism, primitivism, and expressionism, which is what we just went over. CS, AP. Ripe, CS, AP. So what is the next one? You got it. It's Cubanism. Cubanism is influence of African art. African art. and also by earlier post-impressionism art. Paul Cézanne, who explored the underlying structures of things in his paintings. The style was first called Cubanism by a journalist who remarked that the paintings looked like they were made of little cubes. Remember, we talked about the elements of art, and one of the elements is shape. And I drew the cube, the box, on purpose because Cubanism. Cubanism is like art, like the cubes of shapes of little cubes. Okay, so we're going to do little cubes, right? So we would take little cubes. Let's go double those cubes up. This is a big cube, so what am I going to draw? A small cube. And say we do this like this. Okay, so we do this like this. And that's like art. As you can see, the two eyes. So it would be, and you can do this, you are an artist. So it's like a 3D effect. It's Cubanism. So we have been following rules of perspective since Renaissance to create flat paintings that look three-dimensional. But the Cubanists wanted to find a new way of showing their subjects. Instead of using perspective, they painted things from several angles at once. This made most Cubanist paintings look as if they were made up by broken fragments and angles, as different sides and parts of the subject are shown in one image. So, because the Cubanist paintings are full of shapes and angles, most artists use only a few colors, such as browns and blues and grays, to make the picture less confusing. Often, only the most important parts of the subjects were painted to help viewers see it more clearly. From the 1912, Picasso and Braque also began using collage. They glued materials such as cloth, newspaper on their paintings and to show different parts of the subject. This became called synthetic Cubanism. Okay, so that's a different spin-off, but we're going to focus on the Cubanism, just like I showed you with the boxes. And then, we're going to demonstrate that. Cubanists painted one subject from a different angles. Okay, so the banding techniques of perspective. Cubanists painted structures and things rather than rigid images from a viewpoint using little cubes from you distorted. So you could see that the violin, the subject, and then you could see in the picture, this is the violin, but it's this, you know, distorted. Okay. And we're going to show you what is the next one. Serialism. An artist depicted familiar objects so that they appear strange, mysterious in their paintings, or dreamlike and contain unexpected juxtapositions that artists wanted to stir up feelings in viewers' minds. So we're going to talk about that a little bit more. So in 1924, a new movement of writers and artists began in Paris. It was called Surrealism and was led by a poet called André Breton. Surrealism means more than real or the above real. And the surrealists were interested in creating art and literature that showed unconscious mind, the part of the mind that we are not aware of. Brinton had been inspired by Austrian psychoanalyst Sigmund Freud. Freud was one of the first people to explore the unconscious mind. He studied memories, dreams, and instincts, and decided that many important thoughts and true feelings lie hidden in our unconscious mind. Now, I want you to think about that. Your unconscious mind. They say when we're sleeping, we're in our unconscious mind because we're not awake. So, have you ever had a strange dream? Think about it. What is some of your strange dreams? Think about this. The dream. Maybe it was a metaphor of something. Maybe you ate a lot of potatoes and you dreamed of French fries, but in a distorted fashion. Yes, distorted, but it is more than real. So as you see in the picture, like a melted clock. Let me see if you can see it. Keep it still. See that? And we are talking about surrealism. So, with surrealism, it's a dreamlike situation. The other way called automatism. All these words with the ISM ending on it meant that artists created a work automatically without thinking about it, as if it had sprung from his or her unconscious mind. Salvador Dali and Rene Magritte and Yves Takai worked in the first way, while Joan Marais and Paul Klee and Jean Art often worked using automatism. Automatism is a thick color markers with large, with large sheet of paper. Clear your mind. Try not to think about anything. It's as easy as you might. It's easy as you think. You think about something distorted or something that may be real but melted, like the melted clock. Or take a person and make him look like he's a rag doll, something to that effect. Anything that you may have dreamed of, and it is distorted because it's in your unconscious mind, draw that. We're going to draw that. You're going to take that idea and put it on paper. Okay, so often painters pictures that looked illogical but fascinating, and their own dreams and maybe a nightmare, maybe in memories of even instincts. And surrealists are often shows everyday objects with strange situations and places. Painting Salvador Dali, there are giant melting clocks on a beach. So the artist is interested in dreams of the unconscious mind. Okay, so now we're looking at our acronym, and we're saying RIPPECSAP. Abstract art. You got it. Abstract art. So abstract expressionism, because you're expressing how you are feeling, how you see it. After World War II, in the 1940s and the 1950s, a new art movement called abstract expressionism emerged in America. Abstract expressionists wanted to create art that not only showed viewers how they felt about the world problems, but also expressed their innermost thoughts. Like the serial list, the expressionists, ugh, abstract expressionists aimed to make art that came from unconscious mind. The paintings didn't show objects or people, but used colors, brushstrokes, and shapes and expressed their art. Um, the artist's feelings and reactions, and people viewing the art was also the art was important. Abstract expressionism artwork is usually huge. Paintings came in two main styles, and action painters such as Jackson Pollock and Lee Krisner and William de Kooning, and often use automatism to create their work like some serialists had done. Other artists, such as Mark uh, Rothko and Clifford Still and Barnett Newman, had used more controlled painting styles that was later called color filled painting. There was also abstract expressionist sculpture. And action painter Jackson Pollock would lay canvas on the floor, and without any planning, he would splash, throw, dribble paint onto the straight from the large cans. Color filled artists sew canvases with large areas or fields of colors. So he would use the colors, but not in any planning in any form. He would just throw art, paint all over the canvas, and he whatever he came up with. This is what abstract is. A piece of abstract art is this large piece of art, lines, no planning, paint with your hands, using your hands or a brush, and then you just put gold stripes on it, or it doesn't have to be straight. Remember, I told you these are lines that make all those elements of art make up art. Lines and color. I wanted to show you, let me go backtrack. This is a piece of art. You can see that it's leaves, but they have purple stems. What kind of art piece do you think that is? It's one of them ones that we went over. It is post-impressionism. Okay. Here is another piece. This is expressionism. Vivid colors, exaggerated lines. Well, let's see. No, that's wrong. It's more Cubanism and Cubanism, because you have the blocks distorted. Let's talk about pop art. Pop art. What do you think pop art is? You ever seen the Campbell soup can? Remember that name. Warhol. Let me see, where is he? Warhol. Andy Warhol. He came up with the design of the Campbell soup can. and that was considered art. Usually, pop art is fun art movement that begins in the 1950s in London and spread to New York to the 1960s. Pop art artists were fed up with the snobbery that surrounded art, just like the realism art. They were fed up as well, and they wanted to pick life the way it was because of their toiling the ground and the machines that was making things just like them. They were fed up with the snobbery of surrounding art and the, only it was only for the few. But like I said, you are an artist and you can do it because this is easy. You pick whichever art you want to be, and that's art. Abstract expressionism, they wanted to make art that everyone could enjoy their work based on everyday familiar things such as packing, labels, comics, advertising, celebrities. Some pop artists created pictures using material and methods that had never been used before used for art. British artist Richard Hamilton cut up images from magazines to create collages set in people's homes in the America. The artist Andy Warhol used bright, flat colors and copied the printed methods of advertising and comic books. His repeating images reminded viewers of the mass produced goods in supermarkets. Although all pop art focused on the modern world, every artist's work was different. Andy Warhol made huge pictures of cans of soups and movie stars, and Klaus Oldenburg made large, squishy sculptures of burgers and ice cream. Royal Lichtenstein made paintings that looked like huge comic strips. Everyone could enjoy these bright images, uh, whether or not they knew about art. Okay, let's talk about it. Let's talk about what you see as a pop art. And let me demonstrate to you. We're going to do this also. Pop art could be a candy bar. What else? A design. A design on. Think of some things that is interesting as art that we buy every day, like a potato chip bag, Lay's potato chip. Um, I like Lay's potato chips. And what could be a way to express that and even mix some of the other styles of art, genres, uh, and all some of these words? I'm going to give you some vocabulary words. Vocabulary words that can help you. I'm going to show you another one just because I'm doing this. Should have had the page dubbed. I can find it. Anyway, we're going to talk about the ukiyo-e. Ukiyo-e is describes also realism. Life in Japan, made from the 17th and the 19th century, means the world of ordinary people. See this wave? It's a form of ukiyo-e. I did that in a book, in the picture book. That's a Japanese wave. And that's what makes a Japanese wave. They use this to, they carved out, it's a thing we call, known to us as stamping, because it's getting that carving, and that's why it seems cartoonish. But they use carvings to do that. You can do that with a sponge. You can maybe, pick out or carve out like a wave, or even a any type of realist art, or anything that is real. If you can have that much patience, you can sometimes just buy the stamp, and uh, and stamp it onto the paper. But it is mostly like a carving on wood. Process repeated for each color plat. Colors always printed first. The artist draws the outline of the design using ink, and then the printer raised areas of each color plat and one color per block. Okay, so it puts the color on part of it, of the carving, and like the main part, like the light parts, are like on the top of the wave, wherever you think it should, wherever realistically that it should be. So the lighter waves, the lighter colors are on the top of the waves. So we're going to talk about far and near, well, the elements of art that we talked about, and then we're going to do a project. Well, let me show you quickly. Where is my pad? I set it down somewhere. Here it is. Okay, so as you know, you are an artist by now. I am going to draw using lines, and you are going to do the same thing. Okay, so remember I told you about the elements of art? So we're going to draw a triangle. Okay, and as you see, we use lines. This is not the best. Let's see. Let's make that more defined. And then we're going to, as far away, we're going to draw lines alongside. Each one is going to be shorter than the other one. See that? Okay. Now, this is going to come alive in a minute. We're going to see that. And you notice how the shorter lines, longer lines, this is far, this is near. And then we're going to paint this. Then we're going, this is like a scenery. What could I put on here? I could put a bicycle. So let's draw two circles to depict. And I'll draw a triangle again. See that triangle? And then I do this like a bicycle. Someone's left their bike on the side of the road. And these are trees. Let's paint it. Let's paint them. Let's paint it. Very easy to do. Did it come alive with the color or what? We got one of that dark one that I showed you. Then you could, let's go use this big brush. So all around here is grass. And other trees. What type of art do you think this is? I would say realism art, right? Post-realism. Some realism art. It's a picture of a magnolia, but it has gold in it, so it's not quite realism. It's mixed with impressionism. Landscape. And you can do this. You see it's gold right here. This is grass, but it's more gold right here to distinguish between the two colors. We can do, let's do a far away picture here. Let's do it. Far away picture. Far enough. Remember, this is realism, so this is landscape, but it has some impressionism because you don't see gold leaves, you don't see gold barks of trees. You can give an idea that this is real, but it is how the artist sees it. So we're going to use gold again, but we're going to make a smaller tree. Smaller, smaller, smaller tree in the distance. So we're going to use this. Okay. Very easy. Very, very easy. Very easy to do. We're going to take the texture. And remember, it doesn't have to be quite exact, quite detailed, but just give you an illusion. Mary Cassette is an artist who did this. She did landscape, but she didn't make it perfect, but you could see. It's a faraway tree. See that? And you can do that too. I want to ask you a few questions. Tell me, what do you think an image of a person or a group of people What is that? What do you think that is? Portrait. That's right. An arrangement of an object that cannot move but is real and not move on its own. A picture of a cannot move on its own. I think I showed it to you. It's still life. Still life, like a vase, flowers in a vase. What do you think a see. What is a give me a primary color? What is an example of a secondary color? A quick drawing that's not planned out is what? What type of style? Serialism. No, abstract. Excuse me. I'm wrong. And Andy Warhol is best known as depiction of a grocery store item. Which one is that? Right. Name all of the styles of art, just the ones we went over. And then I gave you a bonus one. We are going to do a homework assignment, and that assignment is going to be art history. So you're going to pick what you want from this list on paper, one with a partner. Choose an artist or an art period that you both like and create a collaborative art piece. Work on it together. Or art period, choose both, both of you agree, and present your collaborative art to class. You'll have a week to do this. Then there is one where you choose an artist with and then with the right a presentation on life, of this artist. Present your presentation to the class along with the type of art that this artist did. You're going to do an art piece. Very simple. I'm here to guide you and support you. And I'll let you know, if that is accurate, the type of art that you are going to draw. Also, you're going to do a you can create a string art project using Adobe Photoshop to create an optical illusion. And I'm going to show you how to use the Adobe Photoshop. A naturalist artist, choose realism artist, nature. Choose an artist whose art represents your favorite part of nature. Create a piece of art in the style of this artist and present your art to the class and describe why you choose this artist. Now we have a list of artists of what we went over, labeled so that you can understand what type of artists they are. And if you took notes, you know it's even better. So just remember that you have to understand that elements of art are, the identifying shapes, colors, and then lines, texture. You have also color. Did I mention that? Color. And I hope you enjoyed this long presentation.